Well, that's a good intro for me to get started. It is 9 o'clock, and we're on webinar at this point, so I want to welcome anybody who is online joining us now for the keynote speech for the Rich Earth Institute. This is the Rich Earth Summit. This is the 5th event that we've had focused on resource recovery from urine separation, collection, reprocessing, and repurposing. So I'm pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, Ms. Paula Kehoe. Paula is the Director of Water Resources with the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. And in addition, she serves as the chair of the National Blue Ribbon Commission for Onsite Non-Potable Water Systems. She's responsible for diversifying San Francisco's local water supply portfolio through the development and implementation of conservation, groundwater, and recycled water programs. Paula spearheaded the landmark legislation allowing for the collection, treatment, and use of alternate water sources in buildings and districts within San Francisco. And previously, she worked as the assistant to the general manager of the Public Utility Commission and supported the utility's $4.8 billion, that's billion with a B, capital improvement program designed to rebuild and repair the third largest water delivery system in California. As Public Education Director for San Francisco's Public Utility Commission Water Pollution Prevention Program, it's a mouthful, Paula received 6 state and national awards. She holds a BA from the University of Colorado Boulder and an MS from the University of San Francisco. So, welcome Paula to the podium. Thank you. You can all hear me. If you can't, please just let me know. I'm very happy to be here. I do wish it was still called the Urine Summit, because if you look at my calendar at home, it does say I'm in Ann Arbor at the Urine Summit, so I'm sticking with that name. But in all seriousness, I'm very happy to be here to talk and share with you our story about transforming policy and regulations about treating water on site. And I would like to thank Nancy and Glenn and Kim for the invitation. I really appreciate it. And I'd like to thank Kate for helping me get here safely and all the logistics. And with that, I'm going to start.
Ready at all?
Right. Here we go. Take 2. Thank you. So just to begin my presentation, I'm sure you're all very, very familiar. We have lots of threats in terms of our water security, water supply, water pollution. Nutrient pollution is causing a significant number of threats to our water system throughout the world. We're also faced with urbanization in the 21st century. About half the population today lives in urban centers. We anticipate that number to go up to about 70% by 2050. So people are moving to cities, they're rapidly growing, and these cities are really struggling to find additional water supplies to meet the demands of the growing populations.
As a utility, we face a number of challenges in terms of providing reliable water and sanitation services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. In San Francisco, we are faced with droughts, very, very common occurrence. Unfortunately, in California, we just came out of a drought in 2017. Projections are showing we may go into another drought this coming year. Resilience in terms of earthquakes. We have aging infrastructure. San Francisco is not alone in its aging infrastructure. It's a very, very common problem. We also see rapid growth and new development in San Francisco. There's cranes everywhere in terms of building new buildings for office and multifamily. We're also seeing a lot of issues in terms of with stormwater management. We're seeing wetter and wet years and drier years causing these big swings that are causing flooding problems, as well as water quality issues in some of our reservoirs. So we recognize that the 20th century model of water in and water out, building these large linear infrastructure, centralized infrastructure, really served its purpose in the past. But these systems really are becoming more obsolete as we look to the future and to meet our future challenges. And we recognize that we really need to change business as usual. And this 21st century model that we are looking at really is about an integrated water management approach, which we commonly refer to as One Water. And this approach really looks at, instead of treating things that we consider to be waste, like wastewater or biosolids, urine, these are actually resources and can serve a purpose if we think and shift how we think about these resources within our systems. And so we really, San Francisco has taken this to heart, and we have adopted what we call a One Water SF approach. But this is not just unique to San Francisco. It's very, very exciting that there's utilities and communities throughout the world that are thinking about One Water, that are thinking about this circular economy concept. And again, really changing and shifting how we think about resources. It may sound very simple to just change our thinking, but actually it's a very complex process to changing how we fundamentally do our business. People don't like change. Utilities are generally risk adverse. Doing something different really requires us to take a little risk on and be a little risky. And sometimes that's very uncomfortable for utilities and for managers. But San Francisco, we've been working very hard to diversify our portfolio. As mentioned in the introduction, we are diversifying the city's portfolio. We're in San Francisco. We've been promoting conservation for over 25 years. Our residential per capita is 41 gallons per person per day. That's one of the lowest per capita rates in the entire United States. It's about half the statewide average in California. And that's really been a partnership between the utility and our public and our community about using water efficiently. I recently was at a presentation in San Diego. Water County Authority did a survey, and they surveyed their public. And the public said it's their civic duty to conserve and use water efficiently, which I think is very, very interesting that it's actually their civic duty. So we're starting to see that there is a partnership with our community, and there's also a responsibility from our community to help us solve our water challenges. We're also pumping groundwater. San Francisco historically used groundwater back in the 1920s for drinking. We brought on our large centralized infrastructure system, and then we stopped using groundwater for potable purposes, just for irrigation. But now we've gone back. Now we're pumping that groundwater. We're blending it with our surface water supplies to make our system more resilient, add additional supply. And most importantly, use the right water for the right use. That groundwater is high quality groundwater. Shouldn't be just used for irrigation. It should be used for drinking. And so we're replacing that irrigation water with recycling, taking wastewater and treating that to use it for irrigation of our golf courses and our parks in the city. We're also starting to look at purified water in San Francisco, and that's taking wastewater and treating it to meet drinking water standards. And I'll talk a little bit later about that. But we also decided we really wanted to sort of think outside the traditional types of water sources that communities and utilities use to pursue, and that's really at the building scale. We recognize that there's an opportunity to really rethink how buildings are designed, and again, really reimagine how water is used within the building. And again, thinking about buildings, thinking about resources, buildings generate many different types of what we call alternate water sources. And again, they're resources, not waste. They generate rainwater, which we define as water, that hits the roof. Stormwater, any water that hits the streets or sidewalks or parking lots. There's also foundation drainage, certainly in San Francisco and many communities throughout the country, is foundation drainage, which is nuisance groundwater. Sump pumps are put in basements to prevent those basements from flooding. That water just goes to the sewer system. And the water, the amount of waters, we're talking about millions and millions of gallons of nuisance groundwater is just being discharged to the sewer system every year in San Francisco. Buildings also generate gray water, and in California we have a very specific definition for gray water, and that's water from our clothes washers, our bathroom sinks, and our showers. And then finally, buildings generate black water or wastewater, which is water from our toilets, our dishwashers, and our kitchen sinks, and gray water. That all, again, normally would just go to the sewer system. But again, if we think as these sources as resources and we collect them and treat them appropriately, we can reuse them for non-potable purposes, such as toilet flushing and irrigation. So again, in San Francisco, we decided, okay, this is a great idea. Now what do we do? So we had an idea, but we knew we needed to move forward with this as a concept. And so this started in 2010, and we moved from, this is just sort of our roadmap. 2010, we did research. I'll talk a little bit about that. We went into some coordination, interagency coordination, stakeholder outreach, and ultimately we ended up with an ordinance 2 years later. In terms of the program concept, again, it was a little scary to be at a utility, a very large utility, and say, we want to do something different, water differently. How do we start thinking about that? It was really just simply doing some research. And I found a lot of work that Glenn had written, and he inspired me personally to say it's okay to think differently. We don't have to just continue to have centralized infrastructure in terms of solving and dealing with providing safe water for our communities. So I just want to thank Glenn for inspiring me personally. That's helped me on my journey when you're doing something different. It's nice to know there's others out there thinking that way. But in terms of, again, moving beyond, we also did some research. On-site water treatment systems in a decentralized manner, either in a building scale or a neighborhood scale, are happening throughout the world. And they've been online for a number of years. So in terms of this concept, it isn't necessarily a new concept. It just wasn't. It's just not common. And there are technologies that are available today in the marketplace. That are available to collect water on site in a smaller scale, treat it, and reuse it for non-potable applications. There's also a desire from the private sector to install on-site water treatment systems in their buildings. A lot of buildings, certainly in San Francisco, going for LEED Platinum, installing an on-site water treatment system enables enough points to get these buildings to the platinum level. And so we had a number of developers coming to us in San Francisco and saying, we like your idea as well. We want to put an on-site water treatment system in our building. We also recognize from the utilities perspective why we thought that this was an important and a valuable opportunity within our portfolio is really it enabled us to encourage and to have really water efficient buildings in San Francisco that are going to be built. When we think about the potable water demands in a building, certainly when you look at a multifamily residential building, only about 50% of the demands in that building require potable water or drinking water. There's significant potential of potable offsets that you could save. When you look at an office building, it goes up to almost 95% of all of the demands for that water in the building does not require drinking water. Only 5%, which is basically washing, the sinks and the faucets and showers. So we decided as a utility, if we really, really are interested in this concept, we should install our own on-site water treatment system. And so this is a photograph of our headquarters in the middle. We occupied that building in 2014. But within the building, we do have an on-site water treatment system. It's an engineered wetland treatment system. Looks like large planter boxes surrounding the building. But that system is actually treating all of the black water that we produce in our building through the engineered wetland treatment cells. And then we use UV and chlorine to disinfect that water, and then it goes back up to flush our toilets in our room. So our system has enabled us to reduce our potable water consumption by 60%. Very significant opportunity, again, to preserve and extend our drinking water supplies in San Francisco. And we said, well, it shouldn't be just our utility. We can't just have just one building in San Francisco with this kind of application. How can we scale this up? Can we really see this as a more common practice? It's like installing a boiler or installing a washing machine in a building. How about installing an on-site water treatment system? Sounds a little bit crazy, but why not? Let's think about it. Can we do that? We recognize, though, there are barriers. We know it's possible. We know others are doing it. There's technology. There's the ability to save water, but there are challenges when it came to this concept about scaling up on-site water treatment. And for us in San Francisco, what we've really found was a lack of regulations, water quality standards, and oversight and management. And so we decided to understand, looking at the regulatory landscape, we really wanted to understand water quality standards. Who actually issues water quality standards in the state of California? Who provides any kind of requirements for monitoring and reporting? And who oversees and manages these decentralized water treatment systems to ensure that they're protective of public health and protective of public health on an ongoing basis? Unfortunately, we didn't find very many answers to our questions. We found that basically, in terms of the water quality, for black water treatment systems, really the only reference we could find was Title 22, which is Title 22 in California is for taking municipal wastewater and treating it to produce recycled water for irrigation. But two different kinds of scales. We're talking about a very large centralized scale versus a very small decentralized scale. That was the only applicable regulation we could find. In terms of gray water and rainwater, we looked to the California Plumbing Code. There actually is a reference in the California Plumbing Code to decentralized treatment system, both residential and commercial for rain and gray. Gray water treatment systems referenced an NSF 350 certified system. And NSF is a certification system. It's a performance standard. It's not necessarily a health risk-based water quality standard for a decentralized treatment system. Just come back to that point in a few minutes. But that was the only reference. And also in the California Plumbing Code, there's a reference to rainwater in terms of water quality. For foundation drainage and stormwater, there's nothing in the plumbing code. And so we established our own standard. But there are, even with having the California Plumbing Code acknowledging and obviously incorporating gray water and rainwater, which was very important, so I'm not trying to be critical of the California Plumbing Code. It was very important to have a standard in there. But it also the fact that included requirements such as purple pipe and signage and some construction requirements, but it did not have any oversight and management associated with these decentralized water treatment systems. And, again, if we want to see these systems and more of these systems in San Francisco, we need to make sure they are protective of public health. Very, very critical core component of wanting and actively endorsing and encouraging these kinds of systems. So what we needed to do and what we ended up doing was that we formed an interagency collaboration within the city and county of San Francisco. And the interagency partnership consists of 4 city agencies. The San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, the San Francisco Department of Public Health, the San Francisco Department of Building Inspection, and the San Francisco Department of Public Works. And why these 4 agencies is because each of these agencies have their own jurisdictional issues within San Francisco. Obviously, public health has to deal with health issues. The building department deals with construction and the plumbing code, and public works deals with any pipes in the streets or sidewalks. When we started this work in this partnership, our building representative said, "You're never going to do this. This is not going to happen. You can't do it. It's illegal. I don't want you to do it. There's too many risks and there's too many concerns." And I think what's important, and just to share a lesson out of this, is that we sat down together and we listened to what are the concerns from the building department, what are the concerns from public health, what are the concerns from public works, and through our program, the development of our program, is we address those concerns. And so I just think in terms of thinking about developing policies and regulations, there are legitimate concerns that each of these agencies have because that's their jurisdiction. They're responsible for, obviously, for compliance with plumbing code. So there are responsibilities. But we needed to sit down and listen to one another and really address those issues. And so we were able to do that, and we were successful. And we developed an ordinance in San Francisco. And that ordinance, really what's important about the ordinance is, one, it streamlines the process for a developer to understand what they need to do. But it also clarified the roles and responsibilities of each of the city agencies. And so we all have our own responsibility and our own requirements and within this whole process. And so the utility where I work is that we're really responsible for non-potable demands and supplies. We provide technical assistance and financial assistance. We also manage the cross-connection control program. So all of these treatment systems have to have a cross-connection certification to make sure that the non-potable and the potable piping is not connected. The role of the Department of the Public Health, Environmental Health, is the critical department in this whole program. They actually issued water quality and monitoring standards and requirements. They review and approve engineering reports. They issue the permits to operate these treatment systems, and they require and they review the ongoing water quality monitoring and reporting, again, to make sure that these systems are protective of public health. They have a number of measures in order to, in ways to, deal with facilities that are not in compliance, notice of violation, issue permits, et cetera, again. But it's very, very key that there's oversight and management to ensure that the protection of public health is happening. Our Department of Building Inspection, again, goes back to the plumbing code. Are these projects complying with the plumbing code? And they also get involved in inspection and system installations. Our Department of Public Works is involved really mainly if there's a pipe that goes in the street or under a sidewalk in the street, again, connecting buildings, or the sidewalk to connect neighboring buildings. The utility has developed a number of technical assistance materials to again, help developers. We want to streamline the process. We've developed a water use calculator to help developers understand, should I collect gray water, should I collect black water, rainwater, how about my toilets, how much of an offset will I get, etc. We also have a grant program. Early on in our program, we wanted to encourage people. Again, we developed the ordinance, and we commonly said that we set the table, let's see who comes. And we decided that we wanted to really incentivize people to come to our table. So we do have a grant program. So we provide anywhere from $100,000 up to $500,000 per project. It really has to do with the total amount of water that's saved in terms of the dollars associated with our financing. We also, key to all of this is that we do a lot of stakeholder outreach. So we work with developers and we work with vendors and we work with other folks outside, architects outside of our city family, to share with them our draft rules and regulations, our program documents, to make sure what we're saying makes sense in the real world. We want to encourage that this is really a partnership with the community, and we've been very successful. We've gotten great feedback. Our program has evolved over time. So in our first ordinance went into place in 2012, which is a single building. In 2013, we went ahead and amended that ordinance for district scale systems. So now we, instead of just one building with one treatment system, you can have one treatment system building and to share that water with neighboring buildings. It's more cost effective for developers. In 2015, it actually became a mandatory requirement in San Francisco. And we were in the height of the drought in California, so our drought was from 2013 to 2017. One of our board of supervisors at that time decided we're not going to see another building built in San Francisco without an on-site water treatment system to make sure that they are not using potable water, drinking water to flush their toilets or for irrigation. And that ordinance, the mandatory requirement, went through in 2 months in San Francisco, which, as you can imagine, everywhere is political, but San Francisco can be very political. It was pretty fascinating how quickly that went through. I would say the ability for that to become a mandate was because we had already the voluntary program underway. If we had started just in 2012 as a mandate, I don't know how good that would have been. I think we needed to get our program up and running, work out some kinks in our program, to sort of smooth and streamline our process. But we are starting to see some very interesting applications now in San Francisco, of one to share with you that's actually online. And we've also moved forward. Now we're working with breweries with the same kind of framework to recycle and treat processed water, not wastewater, but processed water on site in breweries. So I'll share with you a few examples of some projects that are occurring and that are online today. 181 Fremont, San Francisco, bottom 2/3 is office, occupied by Facebook employees, and the top third are condominium units. They voluntarily installed a gray water treatment system because they wanted to become a platinum building. So they're currently collecting and treating gray water and rainwater for toilet flushing and irrigation. We actually went to their showroom for their condos, and on their digital display wall, it prominently is the decentralized water treatment system. And so we asked, what do the prospective buyers think about this? The condos are millions of dollars, unfortunately, but they are. And they said, of course you should be treating your own site. So it wasn't like the yuck factor or, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this in these kinds of buildings. It was really an acceptance, and people just expected buildings such as the new buildings to be treating their own water. So I find that also to be very inspiring, that we're moving beyond sort of the concern that people might not want to have recycled water in their toilets. Salesforce Tower, 1,070 feet, tallest building west of the Mississippi. They decided on a voluntary basis, as part of their sustainability corporate goals, that they would install a black water treatment system for toilet flushing, cooling, and irrigation throughout the building. The system is not online, but will be in the next month or two. Moscone Convention Center, it's our downtown convention center. We're expanding their facility underneath, again, a little river of foundation drainage. So again, millions of gallons of water for over 30 years have been being discharged to the sewer system. They decided on a voluntary basis that they wanted to capture that water, treat it, and use it to flush toilets in the convention center, as well as to the left of that pole is actually a truck fill station. So our Department of Public Works can come pick up that water and use the treated foundation water to clean the streets in downtown San Francisco. Chase Center, this is actually a mandatory project. Just came online, just opened about 2 months ago. It's a sports arena, but they also have music venues, etc. And then 2 office buildings, a little bit hard to see, are right behind the arena. But they opted to capture rainwater, stormwater, gray water, and condensate. Opted, I mean they've gone beyond. They added condensate for toilet flushing throughout the arena. We've been working with them to actually add some more interesting signage in the arena. As you can imagine, how many people are coming through that facility. Their signage currently says in the bathrooms, because it was on a sports radio network, do not drink out of the toilets, right? And so the newscasters, sportscasters couldn't figure out why they would have signage such as "Don't drink the water in the toilet." So we're trying to work with them to see if we can encourage them to have more interesting signage. For example, in our building, we changed our message from "Do not drink out of the toilet" to this. We have an on-site water treatment system here to conserve potable drinking water. And so we've changed those messages, which I think is very, very important when we're talking to the general public. We need to think about those messages because they could not understand why people would want to drink out of the toilet. But so we need to think about that as well, moving beyond our installations. Finally, this is just one other example. This is a very, very large potable offset project. We have a downtown steam loop, underground steam loop. They've been using potable water for that steam loop, one of our largest industrial potable water customers. 500 feet away, again, millions of gallons of foundation drainage going in the sewer system. They installed on a voluntary basis a new system. They did use an RO system because it's for boilers for hotels and commercial buildings downtown. And they're now diverting 30 million gallons a year off. Instead of using potable water, they're using treated foundation. Very significant project. So San Francisco, though, we're not alone in this concept. It's not just us thinking about decentralized water treatment systems as happening throughout the world and in the country. So we decided in San Francisco, what the heck, let's invite public health regulators and water and wastewater utilities to come to San Francisco, just public agencies, and talk about the concept of decentralized on-site water treatment systems in their communities. And that started in 2014. We're still going strong today. We have a long name. It's called the National Blue Ribbon Commission for On-Site Non-Potable Water Systems, which actually that name now is being codified in legislation, so it's become its own brand. But we are collaborating, and it really, again, when we met in 2014, it was the first of its kind where public health regulators came into the same room as water and wastewater utilities to talk about on-site water treatment systems, talk about the plumbing code, talk about these fundamental things that we just all take for granted that we think people are already working together. In this case, they weren't. And again, people were excited to come together and actually talk to each other and learn from each other and identify some of our challenges that we face. And so our collaborative is growing in numbers. We just recently, just to give you an example, added Nevada and Idaho. Massachusetts is contemplating. But again, we have folks from all across the country. They come to the table with different drivers. Some are coming for water security or water supply challenges. Some are coming from stormwater. And so it's not about the drivers. It's about the what, which is how do we allow and enable and maybe require decentralized water treatment systems in our communities that are protective of public health. And so we really focus on three core issues that really, again, that we all have in common, really are institutional issues, governance, and science. Again, similar to what we found in San Francisco, what we found wasn't unique, and it's happening in other places. When you look at water quality, you're not going to be able to see the numbers, but what the red box just shows is that whether you're in Colorado or California or Massachusetts or Texas, we all have different water quality standards when it comes to gray water. So, I mean, how are we going to get to consistency if we have different requirements in our plumbing code? We also aren't, a lot of public health regulators, when they came to the table in 2014, were like, how did these things get developed anyway, these water quality standards? Are we sure that they are the right standards to have in these plumbing codes and to have in place? We're not sure if, we don't even know if we buy any of that. And so what we did as a collaborative is that we worked, our states also worked with the Water Research Foundation, U.S. Water Alliance, and Association. Mention that. And so we went to the Water Research Foundation and we said we really would like to do a study on the appropriate water quality standards for decentralized water treatment systems. And so they provided funding for us to hire an independent expert panel, conduct an analysis to really look at what are the appropriate water quality standards that we should have. And so what came out of this research, and the panel also worked with EPA, Office of Research and Development, who was part of our commission, to conduct a QMRA model to look at really, again, what are the pathogens of greatest concern? How do we remove those pathogens to ensure we're protective of public health, whether it's a black water, gray water source, or rainwater source. And so what came out of this work was we call the infamous Table 3.3, but it's a table about the appropriate log reduction target values for removing pathogens, which is virus, bacteria, and protozoa. As the independent expert panel felt that these are the three pathogens that are of greatest concern to public health. And so we have a table for these log reduction targets. Again, it's all about fit for purpose water. This framework of log reduction targets isn't a new methodology. It's a methodology that's used in drinking water. It's a methodology that California, for example, is using for purified water, wastewater to drinking water. So this methodology is not new. It's just never been applied to decentralized water treatment. And so it was very exciting to complete this body of work. We got consensus from all of our commissioners to, again, from how we look from our various states or localities throughout the country. We're all going to take this same approach about this risk-based framework, this log reduction target framework that is more protective of public health. And so what we've done is we've developed model regulations and for states and local communities is all based on this research for risk-based water quality standards. And we're starting to see states and locales move forward, so we're very excited. San Francisco has adopted this. Colorado has amended their Regulation 84, which now allows decentralized black water treatment systems in the state of Colorado. California passed statewide legislation, so in the state of California, we're going to have these new risk-based water quality standards. Hawaii has adopted legislation for the risk-based water quality standards. Minnesota and Washington, D.C. have guidelines for their stormwater programs, all based on, again, the same approach. Washington State and Oregon, and Pat's working very, very hard on this. He's going to make this happen this year to pass the legislation, or next year. Soon, very soon, and again, talking about the same framework and the same approach that we've taken in other areas. In Texas and Alaska are looking at this as well. So it's very, very important again to have this consistency from state to state. So again, if you're in Minnesota or you're in Colorado or California, we're all approaching it from the same perspective. We anticipate this just to grow even further. And in terms of governance, we've also developed some other tools to help communities think about how do they organize themselves, which might be helpful for this group. Again, it's just how do you organize yourself to think about how do you develop an oversight and management program for decentralized treatment systems. One thing that we stress in the book, the Blueprint for Onsite Water Treatment Systems, is we stress in San Francisco, start small and build from there. It's very, very important, I think, to get a core group and build. So small is not bad, small is good, and then you can build from there. Also addressing utility considerations. So there's a lot of utilities that are concerned about decentralized water treatment. We obviously have been in the many, many, many years and decades of centralized infrastructure, and a lot of concerns from utilities about allowing decentralized treatment systems in their community, mainly concerns about loss of revenue, potential impacts on the sewer system in terms of flows and odors. And so we've developed a booklet that talks about some examples to help utilities think about the role and the benefits of decentralized treatment systems in their communities. I talk a lot about this. I've been in a lot of debates and discussions with utilities. I have some scars from my work, but I do think it's very important that we continue to think about decentralized from the utility perspective, and we are starting to see that now. Actually, Austin, in their Water Forward plan, is committed to developing 10 million gallons a day of water from these decentralized water treatment systems. A number of the Denver Water is putting a living machine similar to our system in their new headquarters. Other places, City of St. Paul, Vancouver, Portland, actually Pete's here, Portland, Haslow on 8th, highly recommend to go visit that community. That was all about preventing discharge to the sewer issues. So it's happening, and it's happening in from a utility perspective, which is, again, really transformational and really important in this time. We're working on a training manual to help engineers, designers, regulators, and owners of these systems, again, to really think about how do I put these treatment systems together. And really, frankly, we feel like we're at the beginning of our journey. We are not done. We don't believe we're done. We're far from being done. But we've had a lot of progress, and we're excited that we have consensus among our public health regulators and utilities to move towards this risk-based framework. It's very, very important with this consensus. Also, in the recent EPA Water Reuse Action Plan, the draft that's been submitted, is that they've highlighted our work in that report. They also have agreed with the fit-for-purpose concept. And so we're very excited that this is lining up, again, with the national effort. Where our long-term stretch goal is to get to EPA, for EPA to have guidelines on the same approach that we're taking from these various states. We also feel that having consistent standards nationwide really is going to help market demand, ultimately to lead to more cost-effective treatment systems, energy efficient and smaller footprint. Our current work, aside from this training manual, is looking at plumbing codes. So we are working very hard with IAPMO and ICC, as well as NSF. We're working with these folks to hopefully change the plumbing codes, and so we don't have this problem of we have a plumbing code saying NSF 350, which is a performance standard and not a risk-based water quality standard. So we're making strides, so we're very excited. We're not there yet, but we are making strides. NSF has agreed and has brought forth to their committee to think about changing the methodology for certifying these systems. Very, very exciting opportunity. We're also working with the Green Building Council, and we're hoping to develop operator certification programs to address this work. Just my last minute, I'm going to just talk about where, again, we've expanded this framework in San Francisco for processed water and breweries. There's no oversight. It's not under the Food and Drug. It's not under Division of Drinking Water. It's in no man's land in terms of how do you collect processed water. It takes 7 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of beer, lots of water. So we just developed our own chemical and pathogen control strategy in San Francisco. We did try to do statewide legislation for California. We weren't successful, but we're hopeful we can come back to that because there's, again, a lot of opportunity. We are, in our building, we are treating our water to flush our toilets and our urinals through our engineered wetland treatment system. However, we recently got grants from Water Research Foundation and Bureau of Reclamation to treat that water to a higher standard to meet drinking water. And so we've added additional treatment in our building. In the basement, we have ultrafiltration, reverse osmosis, UV, and we are producing water that's comparable to drinking water. And so we just had a tasting in our building. It was very, very exciting. Most everyone drank it. And we're looking forward to continuing those kinds of research projects and discussion. We're not drinking the water in the building. It just goes back to the toilets, but we have a 5-gallon jug that we have saved for the folks that want to taste it. We're also looking at atmospheric water generation technologies. There's a lot of old traditional passive technologies, fog catchers. Actually, in the East Bay in California, there's a vodka, Fog Point vodka that's produced from fog that's captured in San Francisco. It's very good, and we want to think about those kinds of applications in San Francisco, either the fog catcher or a solar panel. The one on the left is zero mass water. I'm sure you've read about, certainly in Flint. They're looking at a bottling water plant with zero mass water panels. And so we want to think about that application in San Francisco. We want to also be able to engage with the community. Our grant program, we are amending that program right now, and we are going to incorporate a heat recovery component in the program. So if you're going to be getting funding from us, you will be required to do heat recovery for these decentralized water treatment systems. Certainly opportunity to produce thermal energy. And opportunity is the word. We have lots of opportunities. It's really exciting opportunity, and a lot of things to create a new water paradigm for all of us all over the place. I have those toilets up there. We did try to partner on a project for some urine diverting toilets at our airport. Unfortunately, we weren't successful in that funding, but our door is still open, so we would welcome an opportunity to see if we can see that kind of application in San Francisco and where that could take us. On a side note, there is a company that started up in San Francisco to take the biosolids, the sludge, from these decentralized water treatment systems. They're undergoing testing for that, and their plan is to potentially pick up the solids from the various buildings in San Francisco and produce fertilizer. So they are on their way of doing that project. Their name is Epic Clean Technologies, if you're interested in looking them up. They have done a lot of work, and they're continuing to do in that arena as well. But again, I think it's just still an exciting time. We have lots of challenges, but there really is the ability to reimagine and think about our water systems in a way that we can really adapt and change them. It takes hard work. It takes collaboration, it takes motivation, but it can be done. We're certainly seeing that in San Francisco, and we're very excited about that, and we look forward to more opportunities. So I want to thank you very much for listening to me, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. That was inspiring and exactly what we wanted to hear. I hope Enrique was listening. Risk-based framework. So now he knows why I've been pushing this. So. We're here for questions now, and we have microphones will run around. So if you have a question, raise your hand, and either Kate or I will run to you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. My question is, are there any unintended benefits or consequences of installing these on-site treatment systems, either to sewer infrastructure or at the treatment plants?
And before you answer that, introduce yourself, please. Before
my name is Kevin Orman. I'm a postdoc at UC Berkeley.
Great. I get that question all the time, and it is an important question to ask. Are these decentralized water treatment systems either take away flow from a centralized recycled water facility downstream or a purified water facility that's being built, or et cetera, or is it actually cause sewer flow or odor issues? I mean, so it's going to harm the system. So what we do is we utilize the Watts model. Not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's a model that we look at, that we actually look at a project where it's occurring in the city, and we model that to see the flows, the change baseline, and then the change of flows with this treatment system to ensure that there isn't going to be an impact, again, with flows and odors. So we model each and every one of these projects. We also did an example of modeling the whole city. We had way more than we thought, and we still have not seen an impact. We modeled one, to give you an example, 450,000 gallon a day sewer lining potential project that was being proposed, not an impact. impact. But it really is site-specific. I mean, it has to do with how much flow is in that pipeline that's going either past that building. We recently did this new development project called Mission Rock, and we did an analysis, and definitely it's actually going to show an improvement in the sewer flows compared to baseline, and even with an increase in COD, that loading. So we tell people you really need to look at your own system. It's not a simple answer. We've been using Watt's model. I know some utilities use Watt's. I'm sure there's plenty of other models to use. But you definitely need to do that on a localized basis. To date, again, no impacts. Also, one thing I want to add is that we've seen the demands for water going down, right? Certainly in California, many places because of conservation. But what we're starting to see in San Francisco is the overall demand for water is going to go back up because of population and employment growth, and the fact that our conservation, we're almost at market saturation. We've done so much work that our potential for conservation is shrinking. The amount of people that are moving in and building happening, that the overall demand for water is going to go up. Our per capita is going to remain relatively flat, which is very important because that means people are using water efficiently. We anticipate at 41 gallons continuing out or even lower. But the overall demand, and so there will be more water potentially going into the sewer system.
I'm Dave Cedarholm with the City of Concord, New Hampshire, also a board member of Richards. And so thank you very much. I'm blown away by the per capita use. That's just phenomenal. What I'm curious, is San Francisco doing any irrigation of the reused water for golf courses or anything like that?
So the utility, we're building a recycled water treatment plant to irrigate Golden Gate Park, Lincoln Park, and golf courses on the west side of San Francisco. We have also partnered with other utilities to serve recycled water to golf courses. So right now, we will only have one golf course left that will be using potable water, and we just did a study on that to see if we could do a sewer lining application or utilizing storm water. We're not quite sure where that's going to end up. I was just reading that report on the plane yesterday. So pretty expensive project for sewer lining, but might proceed with that because it will be the last golf course on potable water. These mandatory requirements, just to add, these new developments have to use this water for irrigation purpose as well. So it's toilet flushing and irrigation. So a lot of the new development that are redevelopment projects have, some green space and irrigated space, and that they will have to use their water that they treat on site to irrigate those landscapes.
Hi, as Nancy mentioned, my name's Enrique. I'm a PhD student here at the University of Michigan. And I was curious are there any funding mechanisms to promote the development of affordable housing units with on-site treatment, or do you think that on-site treatment would make it more difficult to develop affordable housing in San Francisco?
That's a great question. So our current ordinance has exempted a certain they're named projects that are 100% affordable, that do not have to install an on-site water treatment system. So from the mandatory requirement. Our voluntary program, though, is available, so we have funding for any type of building. We do have a low-income building that is capturing rainwater and using it for toilet flushing. We've been struggling with the concept that we're, through the ordinances, excluded affordable housing. Because is that really the right answer? Or should we provide funding, mandatory, but funding is required or associated with that? So we're thinking about those kinds of applications. A lot of the redevelopment projects may have one affordable housing building in a collection of 10 buildings, for example. That building itself isn't required within that redevelopment, but the others. So that's still something we're thinking about and talking about. So it's a great question. We would love all buildings, regardless of the type, as long as it can be, met with the developers' requirements and their financing strategies.
Hi, I'm Lynette Cladone with the Vermont Clean Water State Revolving Fund. So my question is really about funding, and what funding did you use for your projects, and did you find it cost effective overall?
So the funding used to develop the project or the actual on-site water treatment systems?
I think both.
Okay.
Like, user rates or capital funds.
Yes. There's operating funds. And those are for our grants. The development projects installing these treatment systems, they're paying for them themselves. We are not paying for them. We obviously, the utility paid for the development of this program by doing some research, hiring consultants to help us through this process. So we did pay for some of that work. But we pay for a lot of conservation measures. We also think this is akin to water conservation measures. So we have a whole host of conservation measures. This is just another one that we have in our portfolio. The treatment systems, it depends. I've heard it's very hard actually to understand the actual cost of these treatment systems. We've asked and asked and asked. It's not the easiest question to get from folks. Some people say on a larger district scale system, like the 450,000 gallon a day system, that they thought they would have a return on investment in like 6 years, which seems very low. The building scale, individual building scale like ours is a much longer return on investment. So it really depends. We hope in the future that it will become much more cost effective.
Pete Munoz, Biohabitats. Great to see you again, Paula. I'm curious about the requirement for heat recovery. As you know, wastewater treatment, efficiency is based on the temperature, and so I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, one, you can help us review our grant program when we release it, because we have a short list of folks, and we're going to add you to that list. Right now, it's our understanding, until we get further out the field and far, is that if the heat recovery is good for gray water or black water systems in multifamily setting. But when it comes to commercial, no. And that is coming from someone that has done the systems at Battery Park City in New York. They have decentralized treatment systems in their building. They've incorporated heat recovery. So we've done research on heat recovery systems that are out there. We know that they're available. But that's why I mentioned our next step in this process is to go out to the real world and say, will this work? And we're hopeful that it will, because we certainly know that it's possible. And we would love to see these, again, be more resource recovery facilities and not just producing non-potable water as the only output from these treatment systems. So check your inbox soon.
Hi, Chris Wilson from HRSD in Virginia. So there seems to be a trend of news stories of tech companies sort of anteing up to help with the housing affordability crisis in California and West Coast areas. And just recently, Apple, I think, had $2.5 billion program pledged, maybe in the last week. Have any of those companies approached entities like PUC or otherwise, or have you been able to insert yourself into that dialogue so that those funds are used in a way that supports the goals that you have locally?
So the funding we're talking about is funding to build housing. Housing is in a crisis in California, in many places as well. So we know that some of the companies, like Facebook, they've installed their own on-site water treatment system in their community, and they've been met with a lot of challenges from the utility to actually move forward. Google, I've heard Google is recently proposing another system as well. And so I think from their corporate, they're proposing to install these treatment systems in their new large development projects. We haven't approached them. They haven't approached us on this. And again, we have our mandatory requirement. We have our grants that are funded through our rates. We don't give too many grants. We don't have a lot of
opportunities. So we haven't gone there. I think that money is, again, geared towards more of the housing, actually building. I'm not sure if it's something we would want to venture into that area. It's extremely challenging. Water and building, we have to show, with our water shortage, our water supply assessments for new developments in San Francisco, we potentially are looking at shortfalls. It's very, very challenging to balance, as we all know, water and building. That's a whole nother, I think, discussion in terms of land use and water that don't always come together neatly.
My name is Haley Joyelle Smith, and I'm with Rush, and I'm also a PhD student. And I'm curious if other natural hazards, such as being in a seismic zone, has helped kind of move these on-site wastewater treatment systems into being accepted. Like, are they more resilient? Do they come back online quicker as opposed to having a networked system in the event of a natural disaster?
So we've been waiting for some study to show that. We have heard, like, for example, in New York with the battery park systems, and we have other systems that during Hurricane Sandy, those decentralized treatment systems were functioning when their centralized systems went down. So we've heard that. We certainly know that we're looking at it from a resiliency perspective. That's also why we're looking at atmospheric water generation, all those other kinds of things as well. But we don't have specific information that I could source, but I would say cities building these systems are much easier to install. We think for us to develop a municipal recycled water project, it's at least 10 years. It takes us 10 years between thinking about it, doing a feasibility study, doing environmental review, doing construction, digging up streets. It's at least 10 years, if not 15 years, to build a project. And then you think about these decentralized treatment systems, it's occurring when the building is being built. So they're very quick in terms of how you can build them. They're very modular. You can make them bigger and smaller, very easy. So, I mean, there's those kind of benefits as well.
And are there built-in systems where you would be able to monitor if the water was treated, if there was a disruption from a seismic activity, for instance, where you would be able to feel confident that, all right, it's back up and running?
So each treatment system, there has to be an operator. They have to be either a licensed operator for their gray water or black water, or they have to have certain certifications in training to run rainwater or stormwater systems. So the operator, they have to do a continuous online monitoring of their treatment systems, and they have to provide ongoing reporting. If there is an event, like there is a water quality that didn't meet the specs, they have to divert that water into the sewer. So all of this is built into our program in terms of the roles and responsibilities of a building operator. Or a lot of these buildings are contracting to third party that just are moving around to different buildings. So they all have a number of responsibilities. They can't just serve off-spec water. They can't just keep delivering. They have to maintain these systems. So there is the responsibility of the actual operator, and that they have to report to us if there's an incident. And we haven't had it, knock on wood, we haven't had a big earthquake where we've had to test this.
Well, this has been great, and you all asked great questions, too. We're out of time, but we do have a break, and so there's a chance to catch Paula at the break. But let's thank her again.